Appointments and regulations, candidates to fill the vacant Republican alternate position for Tiverton Board of Canvassers, 6-year term to expire 10/15/2024. Tiverton Republican Town Committee candidates as follows: Christopher Borden, 5557 Fish Road; Donna Cook, 192 Hilton Street; Sherry Acre, 51 Leonard Street; and Laura Rahm, 27 Cornell Road. I'd like to nominate Christopher Borden for the Republican Town Committee seat.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Or against? What are you doing?
I'm not doing nothing. I'm not going to
Abstain.
do any of it.
Okay, he's abstaining.
I'm abstaining from all of them, so.
Economic Development Committee, 4-year term to expire 7/15/2020. Barbara Pelletier, 104 Bonniefield Drive, request reappointment. Barbara, it was here, yeah. Yeah, that's okay, Barbara.
I'll
This
make
is
a motion.
reappointment, so
I'll make a
we can-
motion, we reappoint
Second.
Barbara Pelletier.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Against? Unanimous. Police Chief Jones, request approval of appointments as reserved officers with Chief Jones' recommendation. Mr. John Ribb, retired lieutenant from Middletown Police Department. Mr. Albert Bucci,
Bucci.
good, retired lieutenant from Portsmouth Police Department.
I believe you have the packages with the two gentlemen, with their letters of recommendation, resumes, and the health certificates. So it's my recommendation to the council that in line with the retired officer program, that these two gentlemen be appointed and sworn in.
Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we appoint both gentlemen, I lost it here, for Chief Jones.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Financial business, town administrator, approval of increase in salary for Police Chief Patrick Jones from 87.5 to 89.5 per contract.
Madam President, members of the council, you have the request to be put on the agenda, which explains that the chief completed his probationary period in his new position as chief earlier this month. And according to the contract, he is entitled, and by the way, he completed it very well. His performance has been excellent from my point of view. And according to the contract, he's eligible to get a pay increase in the amount stated here. And my recommendation is to grant that increase.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to give Chief Jones the increase from, I lost it again,
87,500.
87,500 to 89,500 per contract.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Congratulations. New business, Julie Monifo requesting a moratorium on solar development until the solar ordinance has been reviewed to be sure it represents residents' interests and preserving Tiverton's rural character. Is Julie here? Julie, you do realize there was a public hearing on, no, you can come forward, that this was vetted to the public, and we did have a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason I'm here is that I don't believe that everything that's happening is necessarily in compliance with the way people perceive the solar ordinance and the comprehensive plan of Tiverton to be. So I'm going to read this because it's easier.
Sure.
Madam President and councilors, thank you very much for your time this evening and for giving me an opportunity to speak with you about a subject that is a great concern to myself and the residents of Tiverton, Rhode Island. Like many people I've spoken to over the past few weeks, I had a sunny, naive idea about green energy and how it will be taking shape in the future. Because this is all so new, few of us have ever seen what a solar farm actually looks like. When I first saw the facility proposed for Wingover Farm, I was absolutely shocked, not only by how massive it was, but by the way every unique and defining trait had been wiped off this beautiful historic farm. Calling it a solar farm is misleading and does not represent that these facilities are actually factories that manufacture electricity at the scale of a utility-grade power plant, something that does not belong in residential neighborhoods. Because this technology is so new, we do not really know much about it other than that it will surely change in the next few years. There are already new state-of-the-art ways to create green energy that are making their way into the mainstream. Lightweight shingles for rooftops and solar paints for your home are just a couple of examples. Let's not let solar sprawl on farmlands and forests become our dinosaurs of the future. There is a pending bill aimed at stopping the conversion of large tracts of forest land for renewable energy. The Office of Energy Resources is, as we speak, drafting a new model solar ordinance to help us guide future installations away from woodlands and prime open spaces towards industrial areas and existing infrastructure such as buildings, parking lots, and landfill. Should farmers be able to supplement their income by putting underperforming fields into solar? I would say yes. Do we want to encourage outside businesses with no prior commitment to a community to come in and turn our open space into power plants? We should take the time to answer these questions in a thoughtful and intelligent way. We do not want to risk permanent and lasting consequences that we will regret sooner rather than later. Let's not rush in. These are decisions that will impact the rural character of Tiverton for generations to come. We are not prepared for what is coming our way. The proposed utility-scale solar plant for Wingover Farm is a great example of why we should immediately put a moratorium on solar developments until we have better guidelines in place. If this can happen to a pristine historic farm with a 300-year-old farmhouse, prime farmland, forests, and waterways, which is the sheer definition of the goals described in Tiverton's comprehensive plan, the regulations that we have in place are failing the citizens of this town.
Any questions from the council? Go ahead.
I don't know whether or not, and I think that moratoriums are very difficult legally, but I would very much like to ask the planning board to revisit this ordinance. We're not the only community in the state, and as Julie just mentioned, the state itself is looking at solar ordinances because what's happening is these solar companies are coming in and there's less redevelopment of brownfields and rooftops. What they're going for are these big tracts of open land. And they're coming in and clear-cutting them and converting them. And on the one hand, while green energy is a good thing, it's maybe not the best thing to lose all of our, forest and upland to solar because, there's a trade-off there. And that forested land and that upland is what helps to protect our ground and surface water. So, and even the DEM, the Farm, Forest, and Open Space Program, just they're putting forth their own new language about solar installations on farm property and how that would affect what you can do and still keep your Farm, Forest, and Open Space designation, because they're seeing the same thing. I'll be honest, I voted for this ordinance, and in my mind, I pictured, this would be a way for a farmer to, potentially add to their income and keep a farm a working farm. And I think that's good. But even the DEM Farm, Forest, and Open Space Program is seeing what's happening, where these farms are actually not staying farms. They're being completely stripped of all their agricultural use and turning just into giant solar things. I know there's a balance, and one of the attractive things about solar is that, it's less houses on the other hand, even our language around housing developments in the rural parts of town require that the houses be clustered and a certain amount of land, stays as natural, untouched open space. We don't have that with the solar ordinance. You can literally go in and clear cut you could buy 80 acres of forest land and chop down every single tree on it. There's no protection for the land. So I think that this is one of these things where the law of unintended consequences is starting to pop up. We're not the only community. It's why the state is looking at it, and multiple agencies in the state, and the state's for green energy, but even multiple agencies in the state are looking forward to put forward some sort of state regulations to get a handle on this before a lot of the best farmland actually stops being farmland and becomes solely solar land. So I'd like the council to ask the planning board, to take a look at this again and see whether or not we might do some things, at least until some of these state ordinances get squared away or we get some better direction. The other part of this that I worry about a little bit, and no one's really ever been able to answer this question for me, is that there is some limit to how much solar can go in any community based on the transmission capacity of National Grid in that community. I don't know what it is in Tiverton, but at the end of the day, I would be really sad if all the solar went to existing farmland or existing forest land, and then when we want to talk about solar at the landfill or on commercial roofs or on land that needs to be reclaimed or brownfields or any of those things, well, guess what? We can't do it now because the capacity has all been used up by, these large solar installations on what was at one time agricultural property. So, and I think Jan is motioning that he'd like to say something about this as well.
Yes, just very quickly, we now have both the new language from DEM and the new language of the Office of Energy Resource proposed for comment. So we will be looking at them and probably draft comments on that. I'm also aware that the planning board is already, I think, making moves to take another look at that based on that correspondence that has been received. One other thing I just want to say is about, or ask actually, about the moratorium aspect of this. These applications keep coming in, and it will take some time to rewrite the ordinance and go through the process of that. It's clear that a moratorium cannot apply retroactively. That's illegal. I don't know if it's illegal at all to impose a temporary moratorium until there is time, or until there has been time to take a look at the revised guidance from the state and perhaps, consider changes to the existing solar ordinance. That's a question for the solicitor. But time does go by, and so I'm wondering whether a moratorium actually should be considered.
Madam President?
Yes.
I would agree with what Julie said and what Councilor Hilton said. I also am concerned about it because I just keep reading about the clear cutting that has been going on. And Grow Smart came out saying that they really wanted to hold off on the solar stuff and taking another look at it. And Massachusetts, Vermont, and Connecticut, which had been really pushing solar, especially Massachusetts, is scaling back on it, and they're taking another look just for all these different reasons. What I wanted to ask is the solicitor is what our options are for moratorium, and how does it actually work? Because I really don't know how it works.
Well, the leading case is QC Construction versus Gallo. That's a federal district court case. The defendant was the town of Johnston. They enacted a moratorium, and unfortunately, in that case, the moratorium that they enacted was viewed as a taking. It was viewed as a taking, and they had to pay damages on it. However, the QC case sets forth what constitutes a valid moratorium that you can enact. Now, That was for a specific thing. It was for a certain district in the town of Johnston. They were going to put a sewer project in there, and rather than having development, the town said, wait until we can put in that infrastructure. So there is a pathway on this. I just don't know tonight how we can fit it into a solar ordinance. The administrator is correct. When an application is filed, the rules in effect at the time of the filing govern. That's a correct statement. But I would like the town council to, aside from, all these other things that you're doing, is also ask me to give you what, if anything, a criteria. I agree with him, you might have to have a moratorium on this. Whether or not it would be lawful here, and if so, what would be required for that moratorium. I've already started, and I'd like to finish it for your next meeting.
All right, so why don't we put it on would the October 1st meeting be appropriate, a week?
No, that's too much, that's not enough time.
Okay, so it'll be, well, I'm just trying to fit a little bit of stuff into that meeting. All right, so it would be the October 22nd.
Yeah, it's gonna take,
Madam President.
Yes.
Over the last month, 6 weeks, I've been talking with Julie. I did too vote for the solar project and all this stuff. I thought it would be better too, but after talking with Julie, I think between the next 5 and 7 years, we're gonna have such a massive change in what these panels are gonna do, and the size of them and the energy that they can produce. So, I'm kind of on board with you guys on that, and I would like to not impact anybody who already is in process. But even though, no matter what, right, wrong, or indifferent, they have permission to do it. Let them do whatever they're going to do until the point comes where we can revisit the situation. I just don't want to put burden on people who have already spent money to go out and do a solar panel, which they thought was a good idea, and so did we.
So what would the motion be, Tony, to table this subject into the October 22nd meeting and refer it to you? And then what happens when everybody sees this and everyone puts their application in a hurry?
Well, that, the applications would have to be certified as complete. But the first thing is I think the motion should be to request that the planning board review the ordinance for any changes that are necessary in light of the current events, and two, direct the solicitor to come back to report to the town council on whether or not a moratorium would be effective and appropriate in the circumstances, those two.
Would someone like to make that motion?
Well, can I,
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second? I am going to allow discussion. Okay, I have a motion, second, discussion again.
so when you said that, so if we send it over, back to the planning board and it's under review, can we, I know we can't stop the one that is already started, but will that act as like a slowdown?
No.
No.
So,
Speed it up.
yeah, okay.
And like I said, it might speed it up.
And
Joan, go ahead.
and that's perhaps what I'm most afraid of. Since we approved the solar ordinance, I have done more research and read more articles in the paper, and it really concerns me as to the lifespan of these solar panels and what happens to them afterward. There's also been research done where having so many solar panels, black solar panels in a particular area changes the climate within that particular area, and that they're now requiring, if you have black panels, you also have to offset with white panels so that it doesn't change, because it creates a lot of heat with the black solar panels. So I think there's a lot more to solar panels than, or solar photovoltaic panels, whatever, that I really do feel that a moratorium is needed. We have a moratorium on wind turbines right now, and I think we can have a moratorium pending any further projects coming in based upon further review of the guidelines from the state agencies and a review by the planning board and go through that process.
One more second.
Tony, did you say that we can't do that, though?
Oh, no, I'm not
We
saying
can
you
do
can't. I'm just saying I want to make sure that the procedure's down so we don't get sued.
Yeah,
That's
but-
the bottom line for me.
Yeah, but now we're gonna wait till October 22nd.
It's less than 4 weeks away.
Also,
Joan said.
You're saying no moratorium tonight.
Well, you can't just vote a moratorium.
Okay, that's what I'm, that's what.
That's what I'm
It's on the
suggesting
agenda.
On the
tonight.
agenda.
Amanda,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to correct one possible misperception. Just because a project has come in and has an application in the process doesn't mean automatic
Right,
approval.
I know that.
There's, it still gets reviewed quite carefully by the
But
planning
once
board.
it comes
so.
in, can we do anything about it once it comes in? Like, it's gonna be reviewed, but it's already in now.
Oddly enough, there's a case where that came in, there was an application that was filed, and 6 weeks later, it was determined to be incomplete. And after 8 years of litigation, the town was successful in that. That's why I said it has to be a complete application, including
President.
site control. But for a moratorium to be effective, it's not, I mean, there's a whole procedure to it. And I'd like you to know what that whole procedure is, if it's
Before
even
we do it.
appropriate. Here, it's not, I'm not saying you can't do it, but I want you to do it the right way.
So it's against our lawyer's advice to do it this evening. That's what I'm trying to
I don't
get.
think you can.
I mean, we
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Here's the other thing, we also need to be able to point to something valid for a moratorium, correct? I mean, there are things, I will tell you, in the agricultural part of town, one of the things that I'm really worried about these big, huge solar things is what happens to the groundwater? And what happens to the well water of all the people in these areas? Because now you're affecting stormwater runoff, you're affecting well recharge, you're affecting all these things, so potentially, and if some of them think they're gonna blast to put this stuff in, then, we could find ourselves with parts of South Tiverton or even parts of North Tiverton that don't have public water that, with some of these big farms, now don't have enough water. So there's right there, to me, it's unclear that, that there isn't going to be a significant negative impact.
That's well within the purview of the planning board for the application that was referenced. They've gone through master plan, but they still have to go through preliminary plan review. That's when the technical issues such as runoff and other effects on groundwater are discussed. So that's something that is yet to happen in that particular application.
Right, but from the bigger point of view, that's a big open question to me,
Okay.
of all these big
Randy, did you want to say?
I do. As much as I have a change of heart about the solar panels, and we can stop, or we can do a moratorium, in no way do I want the planning board to drag their feet in stopping somebody who has permission already. That, we can't do that. That's not, we don't want them to drag, we want them to push this stuff through as quickly as possible. But, I know, but I'm just gonna make sure, because I'm hearing that we're gonna drag feet, no dragging feet. Okay, I'm just making sure, that's what I'm hearing. I don't want the planning board to start stretching out stuff. I know, I just, whatever there's a permit for, push it through as fast as possible and stop it from that point. I don't want anybody to have to,
Yeah, I just wanted to
Okay.
let you know, and then we also need some guidance. So the first solar proposal has master plan approval, so that one's vested. So that one, wing over, is going, I think would go forward, or they could appeal, I'm sure, file a lawsuit. We do need some guidance. Next Tuesday at our meeting, we do have a proposal as part of a subdivision in South Tiverton. So it's only been a concept plan that's been presented, but we will need some guidance if we address that next Tuesday. And then I have heard there's also another large one that's going to be as a concept plan on our November agenda. So I'm just saying, even late October, we'll need guidance as far as what we're supposed to do with this concept
Tony's
plan
office.
next week.
Yeah, we'll give you that
as well.
guidance.
All right, and then for the next one, because I think it's only fair to let these people that are bringing these in kind of know where the
Yes.
town is going to go with this before, we start having a planning board meeting to discuss this, and then we put the brakes on.
Correct.
So however you can help us, that'd be great. Thanks.
All right, so Mandy, who made the motion? Did anyone make that motion? No.
Yes.
I've lost track. I don't know if we actually have anyone who made the motion. Oh, yes, we did. We did, I think we did.
What was the motion?
Nancy made the motion.
I thought you seconded it.
The motion is
didn't
to
second it.
request the planning board to review ordinance and direct the solicitor to look at the legal ramifications of a moratorium
As quickly as
as
possible.
quickly as possible. And
For
get
the next
back
meeting?
October 23rd.
Oh, yeah.
I'll do my
To
best.
request the
right.
planning board review
I'm not
the
making
ordinance
promises.
change
Okay.
necessary in light of the current events. Blah, blah, blah.
So, October 1st, and if he's not, I think mine was much better than her blah, blah, blah one. But anyway, that's just my
But they're
opinion.
not in
So,
moratorium would be appropriate in this circumstance.
So we'll say October 1st, if possible, if not October 22nd.
Have this for next week?
You won't have it for next week.
He's not gonna have it, but he would. All right, so,
Was there a vote on that? I'm sorry.
yeah.
No, we
motion's
didn't vote
been
on it
made and
yet.
Was the motion made? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I made the
and
motion.
And it was
seconded, yes.
seconded. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you, I think. Okay, no bids and requests, town administrator announcements, council announcements.
Yes.
Really?
I'd like
Oh,
to,
I'm kidding.
yeah, I'd like to congratulate the Tiverton Wiffle Ball League champions, the Colonial Athletics, for winning the championship for 3 years in a row.
Congratulations.
Wiffle ball?
Wiffle ball.
Is that a sport?
All right, and any other council announcements? Town solicitor announcements, town clerk items. You want to do the Clogland thing?
I want to just make sure everyone realizes the last day to register to vote for the general election is Sunday, October 7th, and it will be held at the police station, I believe from 8:30 to 4. So the last day to register, if you want to vote in that general election on November 6th, is October 7th, Sunday,
Are
this
they
coming
having it at the
Sunday.
police station in case some
Yes,
dead
the
people who
last two
show up
times
to
we've
register
had it-
get arrested?
Police station, because they're open all day, and that's where most of the communities have them. I had a request, there was a woman, I forgot her name, but she's with the litter committee. She brought in a poster, we had it here, of different litter she's picked up. Mainly she had done it around Fodland, but in other areas of the town. And the litter committee is seeking volunteers to help clean up areas in town. They'll provide the bags, and we will pick up the trash. You can leave the bag, and they'll pick up the trash. It's much-needed help in different areas of town, and you can call the litter committee or call the clerk's office, and we'll get you in contact with the litter committee.
Okay, that's it. Anything else? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed executive session, Town Administrator 42465A6, prospective business industrial park.
Second. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Solicitor, litigation 4246A2, James McGinnis versus Tiverton CA number NC 2017-0169.
Second. Yes.
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 And go into closed executive, solicitor, potential litigation 42465A2.
Second. Yes.
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 And go into executive session, which, I'll read it first. Council President, Personnel, 42465A1, Town Administrator, 6-month evaluation.
Second.
I would like a motion to table this till October 1st. We still do not have all the evaluations in from the council. Whoever is not passing in your evaluations, please get it to Nancy by Wednesday. And what she will do is get all the numbers together and get it to us and the town administrator for the weekend, so it could be reviewed. And then October 1st, where we have the ordinance public hearing, we'll have an executive for this.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
Yes?
Table it. To table it.
To table it, yes.
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 Right on cue.
Yeah, all right.
Council President, 4246582, collective bargaining, IBPO, and IAFF. Second, Joe?
Where'd you see that? Second?
Well, it's
Yes.
on the new revised
Oh,
one.
I don't
Amended agenda.
have that.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
well, I don't have
Now,
that.
could
Yes.
Look, she didn't give it to me.
Nancy, could you call Tim to see, or someone
Jeannie's
Tim
fault.
to see, okay, see if he's on his way, because he said he was coming.